I, 32, just experienced the most bizarre Sunday brunch of my life. My fiancée Isabella, 29, and I were supposed to get married in 6 weeks, together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. Everything seemed fine on the surface, though looking back now, she'd been distant these past 3 weeks. Busy with work projects, she kept saying whenever I asked about her mood. This morning, she suggested brunch with her 3 closest friends, Amber, Lisa, and Nicole. Said it would be fun, relaxed, nothing special. I agreed, though I'd been getting this nagging gut feeling something was off. Less texting throughout the day, less intimacy at night, but I figured it was wedding stress. Hell, I was stressed too. $45,000 in deposits, vendors calling constantly, guest list drama, normal stuff. We're at Cornerstone Cafe, mimosas flowing, everyone laughing about bridesmaid dress fittings. The conversation was light. Isabella seemed more relaxed than she'd been in weeks, actually. I remember thinking maybe I'd been overthinking everything. Maybe she just needed girl time to decompress. Then, mid-conversation about whether Lisa should go with the navy blue or burgundy dress, Isabella suddenly goes quiet, dead silent. Her fork stops halfway to her mouth. The entire energy at the table shifts. Her friends notice immediately. "You okay, Is?" Amber asks, reaching across to touch Isabella's arm. Amber's been her maid of honor since we got engaged, known Isabella since college. Isabella takes this deep breath, the kind you take before diving into cold water. She looks directly at me, and I see something in her eyes I've never seen before. Not sadness, not anger. Something like relief? I need to say something. My stomach drops, but my mind goes to practical places. Maybe she's pregnant. We'd talked about kids after the wedding. Maybe she wants to change the venue, though that would be a disaster this late. Maybe her parents are getting divorced and affecting the wedding budget. Nope, I can't do this anymore. I'm calling off the wedding. I don't love you anymore. Just like that. No preamble, no, we need to talk, or I've been thinking. In front of Amber, Lisa, and Nicole, with our waiter, kid named Brad who's been serving us for 20 minutes, literally walking up with my eggs Benedict. Her friends gasped. Lisa actually covered her mouth with both hands. Nicole said, "Oh my God, Isabella, are you serious right now?" I sat there for maybe 10 seconds processing. 10 very long seconds where I could hear the restaurant sounds, clinking silverware, conversations at other tables, the espresso machine hissing, while my brain tried to compute what just happened. Then this weird calm washed over me. Not the calm you feel when you're okay. The calm you feel when you're in complete shock and your nervous system just shuts down, protective mode. "Thank you for your honesty," I heard myself say, my voice steadier than it had any right to be. I held out my hand. "The ring, please." She blinked, confused. "What?" "The engagement ring. It was my grandmother's. I'd like it back." Her friends were watching like this was reality TV. Isabella stared at my outstretched hand for a moment, then slowly pulled off the ring. It caught the light as she handed it to me. Princess cut diamond, platinum setting, belonged to my dad's mother. I pocketed it without looking at it again. I stood up. My legs felt strange, like they belonged to someone else. Well, this changes plans considerably. I could hear my own voice, but it sounded like someone else talking. I was going to host a wedding reception in 6 weeks. Now I'll be hosting a dodged-a-bullet party instead. Same venue, same catering, same open bar. You're all still invited, of course. Her friends actually giggled. Lisa and Nicole exchanged glances and giggled like I'd made a joke. Amber looked uncertain, like she couldn't tell if I was serious. Then I added, "Oh, and about those wedding expenses. The $45,000 in deposits you insisted on putting in your name to prove you're an independent modern woman, those are all yours now. Good luck with that." The giggling stopped. Isabella's face went completely white. "Also," I continued, surprised by how calm I still felt, "you'll need to move out of my apartment by the end of the month, since you refused to sign the lease when I asked you to move in officially." "Wait, what?" Isabella's voice cracked. "Your name on everything. The venue deposit, catering, photographer, flowers, even the damn cake tasting we did last month. Remember, you insisted, said it was important for building your credit and independence, something about not wanting to be financially dependent on any man." I could feel myself getting into a rhythm now, my brain finally catching up to the situation. "Congratulations on your independence," Amber whispered. "Oh, shit." One more thing, I pulled out my phone, scrolled to my uncle's contact. My Uncle Howard was planning to give us $75,000 as a wedding gift. Had it all set up in a special escrow account, but that was contingent on us actually getting married. So that's gone too. I could see Isabella doing the math in her head. 45,000 in debt plus 75,000 lost gift. Her face went from white to gray. I dropped $40 on the table, enough to cover my untouched food and a decent tip for Brad, who was standing there holding my plate looking completely bewildered. "Enjoy brunch, ladies. I've got a party to plan." I walked out of Cornerstone Cafe into the bright Sunday morning, got in my car, and just sat there for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking now, the calm wearing off, reality setting in. 4 years, 4 fucking years, and she ends it at brunch, in front of her friends. Like I'm some random guy she's been casually dating. But underneath the shock and hurt, I felt something else, something I didn't expect. Relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for weeks without realizing it, and could finally exhale. My phone started buzzing with texts, but I ignored them. Started the engine and drove home to my apartment. Our apartment. Whatever. Time to figure out what "dodged a bullet" actually meant. 3 days later, the fallout has been absolutely insane. I'm talking nuclear-level family drama that I never saw coming. Sunday afternoon, about 2 hours after I left Cornerstone Cafe, my phone started blowing up. Not just texts, actual phone calls. Isabella's friends, her mom, Jennifer, her sister, Stephanie, even her dad, William, all of them. Jennifer called first, around 2 p.m. I was sitting in my apartment, still processing everything, when her name popped up on my screen. "Christopher, you can't just abandon her with all that debt. You were planning to get married. That money was for both of you." "Mrs. Monroe," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Isabella called off the wedding. The expenses were in her name at her insistence. I'm not legally or morally obligated to pay for a wedding that isn't happening. But she made those deposits assuming you'd help pay. She made those deposits assuming we'd get married. She ended the engagement. Actions have consequences." Jennifer started crying then, actual sobbing over the phone. Called me heartless, said I was destroying her daughter's future over pride, hung up on me. That was just the beginning. Stephanie texted me around 4 p.m. "She's having panic attacks. The wedding costs are going to ruin her financially. You really going to let that happen?" I stared at that text for a long time. Part of me, the part that had loved Isabella for 4 years, wanted to cave, wanted to be the good guy, help her out of this mess. But then I remembered sitting in that restaurant, the way her friends had laughed when I first mentioned the party. I replied, "She really going to call off a wedding publicly and expect me to still fund it? Yes, I'm going to let that happen." Then I blocked Stephanie's number. Monday morning at work was weird. I'm a senior systems analyst at a mid-sized tech firm, and word travels fast in our office. My buddy Jason from the next cubicle over came by around 10 a.m. "Dude, heard about the wedding. You okay?" "Been better, but yeah, I'm okay." "What happened?" "She called it off, at brunch, in front of her friends." Jason whistled low. "That's cold, man. What are you going to do?" "Throw a party." He laughed, thinking I was joking. Then he saw my face. "Wait, you're serious?" "Dead serious. Same venue, same date, different celebration." Word spread through the office by lunch. Some people offered sympathy. Others looked at me like I was handling it weird. My manager, Kevin Torres, called me into his office Tuesday afternoon. "Chris, I heard about your situation. If you need time off to deal with whatever this is, let me know." "Thanks." "Kevin, I'm actually doing okay. Better than okay, honestly." He raised an eyebrow. "Most people aren't this calm after their fiancée calls off the wedding. Most people don't have their fiancé stick them with 45 grand in debt and then demand they pay it anyway." Kevin's expression changed. "Oh, well, that's different." Tuesday evening, Isabella showed up at my apartment building. I have security cameras on my phone app. Saw her buzzing my unit repeatedly for 15 minutes straight. Finally answered the intercom. "We need to talk, Chris." "No, we don't. Please, I made a mistake. I was overwhelmed with everything. The wedding planning, work stress, my parents' expectations. We can work this out." I almost laughed. Work stress. That's what she was going with. You don't love me anymore, remember? Sunday at brunch? I didn't mean it like that. I was just scared of making such a big commitment. Cold feet, you know? You meant it enough to say it in front of your friends. You meant it enough to blindside me at a restaurant instead of having an adult conversation at home. What about the wedding costs? I can't afford this alone. What about them? You have to help me. We planned this together. You put everything in your name. You called off the wedding. You own this. This is financial abuse. I actually did laugh then. Financial abuse? Isabella, you insisted on putting everything in your name to prove your independence. You made that choice. I'm just not bailing you out of the consequences. She stood there crying for another 10 minutes, occasionally saying my name through the intercom. I watched her on the camera feed, feeling nothing. Empty. 4 years, and this is how it ends. Her crying outside my building because I won't pay for the wedding she canceled. Wednesday morning brought the lawyer escalation. I was at my desk trying to focus on code reviews when I got an email from someone named Attorney Mills. Professional letterhead, very formal language. The gist, I needed to pay my fair share of wedding expenses since they were undertaken with mutual understanding of shared financial responsibility. I forwarded it to my lawyer, Attorney Foster, guy I'd used for my apartment purchase 2 years ago. He called me within an hour. Chris, this is bullshit. Pardon my French, but she has no case here. What's it going to cost me to defend this? Maybe $6,000 to $8,000 if it goes anywhere, but honestly, I doubt it will. Any judge will take one look at the facts, expenses in her name, she ended the engagement, and toss it. Do whatever you need to do. I'm not giving her a cent. You sure? Sometimes it's cheaper to settle. Avoid the hassle. Foster, she humiliated me in public and then expected me to fund her consequences. This isn't about money anymore. It's about self-respect. Understood. I'll draft a response. That afternoon, I found out what really happened. Jason had been asking around. Apparently, his girlfriend knew someone who went to Isabella's gym. 3 months. She'd been talking to some guy named Damian Cross for 3 months. Personal trainer, apparently. Not physical, but emotional affair stuff. Long conversations, texting, the whole thing. She'd convinced herself she was in love with him and decided to call off our wedding to pursue her happiness. The kicker? Damian found out about the $45,000 debt situation and the family drama. Ghosted her immediately. Smart guy. So now, Isabella's alone, broke, and desperate. Her dream guy vanished the moment things got complicated. Meanwhile, I'm getting threatening phone calls from her father and angry texts from her entire extended family. But I'm sleeping better than I have in months. Thursday brought the full family siege. I was in the middle of a client presentation when my assistant knocked on the conference room door. Chris, sorry to interrupt, but there's a William Monroe on line 2. Says it's urgent family business. I excused myself from the meeting. Isabella's father had somehow gotten my direct office line. You're destroying my daughter's life over pride, he said without preamble. Mr. Monroe, your daughter destroyed her own life with her choices. She made a mistake. People make mistakes, Christopher. And people face consequences for mistakes. That's how the adult world works. I'm offering to mediate here. We can split the costs 50-50. You pay half, she pays half. Clean slate, everyone moves on. I almost admired his negotiation attempt. Almost. No. Why are you being so stubborn about this? Because your daughter called off our wedding at brunch in front of her friends, for maximum humiliation. Now she wants my money to clean up her mess. That's not stubbornness, Mr. Monroe. That's self-respect. His tone shifted then, became threatening. Said he knew people in the community. Said I'd regret making an enemy of his family. I reminded him that I record all my calls in a one-party consent state and hung up. My hands were shaking after that call, not from fear, from anger. The entitlement of these people was unbelievable. Friday afternoon brought more revelations. Jason pulled me aside during our lunch break. Dude, you're not going to believe this. Remember I told you about the gym thing? Yeah? Well, Sarah in accounting, her sister works at the same gym. Apparently this Damian guy had no clue Isabella was engaged. She told him she was single. I stared at him. What? Gets better. When he found out about the wedding situation and the debt, he straight up told people he dodged a bullet. Said she seemed intense. and he wasn't looking for that kind of drama. So Isabella had lied to her affair partner about being engaged, then called off our wedding for a guy who wanted nothing to do with her once reality hit. The irony was almost beautiful. That evening, I started getting serious about the party planning, called the venue. Riverside Gardens, same place where our reception was supposed to happen. Mr. Baldwin, how's the wedding planning going? Actually, there's been a change. The wedding is off, but I'd like to keep the date and have a different kind of celebration. Silence. Then, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. I'm throwing a dodged a bullet party instead. Same guest count, same catering package, same bar service. Can you accommodate that? More silence. That's unusual. But yes, sir. Your contract allows for event modifications with 30 days notice. Perfect. Oh, and I'll need to change some of the decorations. Nothing fancy, just a banner that says dodged a bullet, a celebration. Weekend was spent making calls. My parents first. They took it better than expected. Son, my dad Richard said, I have to admit, we had some concerns about Isabella. Your mother and I talked about it after the engagement party. What kind of concerns? She seemed calculating. The way she insisted on putting everything in her name, then expected you to pay for it, like she wanted control but not responsibility. My mom Margaret got on the line. We're proud of how you're handling this, sweetheart. A lot of men would have just paid the bills and stayed bitter. Thanks, Mom. That means a lot. Monday brought the official lawsuit. Attorney Foster called me at work. They filed breach of promise, unjust enrichment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, the whole kitchen sink approach. How worried should I be? Not very. Judge Patterson is handling it. He's old school, doesn't tolerate frivolous claims. The facts are terrible for Isabella. She initiated the breakup, all contracts are in her name, and you have witnesses to her public announcement. Timeline? Mills will want to drag this out. Hope you settle. But I'll file a motion to dismiss immediately. Should be resolved within 6 weeks. Cost estimate? Probably $7,000 to $8,000 all in. Worth every penny to establish you're not a pushover. Tuesday evening, I got home from work to find building security waiting in the lobby. Mr. Baldwin, we had an incident today. Isabella Monroe gained access to the building. Someone held the door for her and was banging on your apartment door for about 20 minutes. I checked my security app. Sure enough, there was Isabella pounding on my door, crying, occasionally shouting my name. We escorted her out, and she's now banned from the property. She tries this again, we're calling the police immediately. Thank you. I appreciate the heads up. Sir, if you don't mind me asking, what did you do to her? I've been working security for 15 years. Never seen someone that desperate. I didn't marry her. He laughed despite himself. Fair enough. Have a good evening, sir. Wednesday was party confirmation day. Final guest list, 32 people. My family, close friends, a few co-workers, even Lisa and Nicole, Isabella's friends who'd reached out privately to apologize for not seeing how badly she had handled everything. We thought she was joking at first, Lisa had texted. Like, who breaks up with someone at brunch? But then, when you left and she started crying about the money, we realized she was serious. That's just not how you treat someone you've been with for 4 years. I'd gotten the banner printed. Dodged a bullet, a celebration, in bold navy letters on white background. Professional, not petty. Thursday, my Uncle Howard called. Chris, heard about the wedding situation. I'm sorry, son. Don't be Uncle Howard. I'm actually relieved. The $75,000, I want you to know that money was specifically for your marriage, supporting a family, since that's not happening. I understand completely. I never expected that money anyway. But I am proud of you for not caving to the pressure. Your grandmother would have approved. She never liked women who wanted the benefits without the responsibilities. Friday evening, Isabella's sister Stephanie showed up at my building. Security called upstairs. Mr. Baldwin, Stephanie Monroe is in the lobby. Says she needs 5 minutes to talk to you. Should we send her up or escort her out? Against my better judgment, 5 minutes in the lobby. I'll be right down. Stephanie was waiting in the lobby, looking exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Wrinkled clothes like she'd been sleeping poorly. We need to talk, she said as I approached. 5 minutes, that's what I told security. We sat in the lobby chairs. She looked around nervously, then leaned forward. She's falling apart, Chris. Lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks. Can't sleep, barely eating. The debt collectors started calling yesterday. That's unfortunate. She knows she screwed up. She knows she hurt you. But this punishment doesn't fit the crime. I studied her face. What punishment? I'm not doing anything to her. I'm just not rescuing her from her own decisions. You could help. You have the money. I do have money. Money I'm keeping because I didn't call off my own wedding and stick myself with unpayable debt. The $75,000 from your uncle, can't you ask him to give it anyway, just to help her out of this hole? I stared at her for a long moment. Stephanie, you want me to ask my uncle for $75,000 to give to my ex-fiancée who called off our wedding so she can pay off debt she insisted on putting in her own name? When you put it like that, that's exactly what you're asking. You're delusional, genuinely delusional. You're being cruel. I'm being fair. She made adult choices. She gets adult consequences. I stood up. We're done here. Don't come back. She started crying right there in my lobby. I went upstairs, poured myself a drink, and tried to process how Isabella's family thought any of this was my responsibility. The next 2 weeks passed quickly. Work kept me busy. Actually threw myself into a new system integration project that I'd been putting off. My productivity went through the roof, honestly. Turns out not worrying about wedding planning freed up a lot of mental bandwidth. The party was scheduled for Saturday. Thursday, I got an unexpected Facebook message from Damian Cross himself. Dude, I had no idea she was engaged. She told me she was single, going through a rough patch with her ex-boyfriend. Just wanted you to know. I accepted his friend request and replied, "Thanks for the heads up. How much did she tell you about the situation?" Enough to know I dodged a bullet too. She's been blowing up my phone since everything went down, saying you ruined her life. But from what I can tell, she ruined her own life. That's about the size of it. She's intense, man. Like, scary intense. Good luck with whatever's going on. He unfriended me immediately after. Smart strategy. No need to get pulled into someone else's drama. Friday, Attorney Foster called with the news I'd been waiting for. Motion to dismiss granted, Judge Patterson took one look at the facts and tossed the whole thing. Told Mills to advise his client to stop wasting the court's time with frivolous lawsuits. What did it cost me? $7,400 final bill. Isabella's legal fees probably ran her another $4,000 to $5,000 she doesn't have. Money well spent. Judge made one comment I thought you'd appreciate. He said, when someone calls off their own wedding, they don't get to sue their ex-fiancée for not paying the bills. Saturday arrived clear and sunny, perfect party weather. I got to Riverside Gardens early to check the setup. The venue coordinator had done an amazing job. Same elegant decorations we'd planned for the wedding, but the banner dominated the space. Dodged a bullet, a celebration in bold letters. People started arriving around 6 p.m. 32 confirmed guests, and every single one showed up. My parents, Uncle Howard, my co-workers including Jason and Kevin, college friends I hadn't seen in months, even my neighbor Mrs. Patterson who'd heard the story and asked to come. Most surprisingly, Lisa and Nicole arrived together around 6:30. We couldn't not come, Lisa said. What Isabella did was wrong. You handled it with more class than most people would have. Plus, Nicole added, this party is actually more fun than the wedding would have been. No stress, no family drama, just good people having a good time. The evening was perfect. Open bar, great food, lots of laughs. Jason gave a toast around 8 p.m. to our friend Chris, who dodged not just a bullet, but a whole firing squad. And to him, having the backbone to not pay $45,000 for the privilege of being dumped at brunch. Everyone cheered. Uncle Howard pulled me aside afterward. Your grandmother would have been proud. She always said the measure of a man isn't what he does when things go right, but how he handles it, when everything falls apart. I posted a few photos on social media, group shots, the banner, people laughing. Didn't tag Isabella, didn't mention her name, just celebration photos. She saw them. I know because Jennifer Monroe called me Sunday morning, absolutely furious. How dare you mock my daughter publicly? I threw a party with my friends, didn't mention Isabella once. That banner, those posts, you're humiliating her. She humiliated herself. I'm just living my life. She's filing for bankruptcy. Do you understand that? Yes, that's what happens when you take on $45,000 in debt you can't afford and then lose the person who was going to help you pay it. You could stop all this. Just help her with some of the money. Why would I do that? Because you loved her once. Past tense. She ended that at brunch. Jennifer hung up crying. The final chapter came 2 weeks later. Isabella tried one last desperate move, showed up at my parents' house. Big mistake. Dad told me about it that evening. She came to the door crying, begging me to talk sense into you. Said she was going to lose everything. Asked if we could give her the money since she was practically family. What did you say? I said, you called off the wedding. You're not family, and my son doesn't owe you anything. Then I closed the door. Thanks, Dad. Son, I'm proud of you. A lot of men would have caved under that pressure. You stood your ground. Current status. Isabella moved back in with her parents, had to break her apartment lease for more fees. She's working 2 jobs trying to manage the debt, filed for bankruptcy protection. But her credit is destroyed for years. Me? I'm doing great. Sold grandmother's ring to a collector. Got $12,000 for it, more than I expected. Put that money toward a vacation fund. Apartment feels peaceful, spacious. Started dating casually again. Financially, I'm out about $9,000 total. Legal fees, party costs, various expenses. Isabella's out. $45,000 plus legal fees, plus moving costs, plus destroyed credit, plus lost opportunity with Uncle Howard's $75,000. The math works perfectly for me. Someone asked me last week if I'd ever consider helping her now that the dust has settled, if seeing her struggle makes me want to step in. Not even a little. This was never about money. It was about respect. She disrespected me in the worst possible way, then expected me to fund her consequences. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. And when they try to make their problem your problem, sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let them solve it themselves. The dodged a bullet party was the best money I've spent in years. Life's good. Moving forward. No regrets.